We saw one of the trains go by just a little while ago. CSX has got their tracks back up and running again. And ABC News the other night did a big piece that said that it was just a pork barrel deal to move that track. Anybody got a comment about that?
Well, I think that's just absurd.
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, it depends on whose pork
I just like the fuse. I just like the fuse here, Mayor Bill.
I guess it depends on whose pork you're talking about.
They're talking about the fact that they say, some people in other parts of the country say it's a tremendous waste of taxpayer money to buy that right-of-way over there and to move Highway 90 up and to move the railroad tracks up, but the governor believes it's essential.
Absolutely, it's essential not only to our economic development in these communities, but it's an issue of safety. We have 90 railroad crossings for 80 miles across our coast. There's been 90 accidents there since, or excuse me, 170 accidents since the year 2000. It's an issue of safety and on a day-to-day basis, and it's also an issue of safety of when a hurricane, I mean, it ripped up 38 miles of track from the bed, and if that happens again, not only will our development be cut, an essential corridor of commerce in the United States will be cut off again.
It's another multi-million dollar job to fix it. How's
Absolutely.
the legislature feel about it?
I hadn't heard a lot of talk about it in the legislature, but personally I feel that being from Biloxi, we don't have enough corridors east, west, or north, south. So, my daddy was in politics back in the 70s, and his concept back then was to get rid of the railroad and put a 4-lane highway east and west where the railroad tracks are to alleviate some of our traffic problems. Can you imagine what it was when Highway 90 was closed after the storm, and the only east-west corridor we had in Biloxi was Irish Hill Drive, a 2-lane drive that parallels the railroad tracks. So I said, how important would that have been for Biloxi to have another 4-lane east-west corridor?
It's just a good transportation policy decision to have another east-west corridor, because Highway 90 is a historic highway, it's a scenic highway, and we need to preserve the character of that highway. And we need another east-west corridor to get people along the entire coastline, east and west, as far as the local resident population to get to and from their employment needs and purchase needs.
Mayor Moran, is it pork barrel?
Absolutely not. I think Brian nailed it on the head. It's a safety issue. What price for life, and clearly for a commercial corridor, and if we want to preserve Highway 90 as a scenic boulevard and really make this into the entire coast into a world-class resort area, we don't want to have to expand that to 6 or 8 lanes and have an expressway right on the beach. That, I think we're all agreed that we don't want to see that happen, but we do really need another east-west corridor along the coast.
David Nichols, what about it?
One of the other safety issues is the transportation of the hazardous chemicals. That train carries some of the most hazardous chemicals that's transported in the United States. And it goes right through the heart of every community on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. If you had one in downtown Gulfport, you'd take out, you'd have to evacuate City Hall, the county courthouse, the central business district, hospitals. So, I don't want to send the transportation issues to another area, but there's got to be easier ways to go through that aren't in metropolitan areas that it would impact.
I understand Malcolm Jones is here. He is the Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Pass Christian. I'm glad you could make it. What are your thoughts about all this?
I think they're right on point. I think it's a combination of issues. One is trying to move people from one part of the coast to the other part of the coast. The other is trying to deal with the hazardous waste. And the other issue has to do with railroad crossings in general. We have one of the most dangerous areas for railroad crossing accidents. And every year, unfortunately, we lose both residents and tourists. And so we need relief. And I think it's no different from any other metropolitan growing area. We're going to be rapid growth now, so we need it more than ever.
We are glad that you could come and join us. And sorry you couldn't be here off the top, but let me get a little thumbnail on what's happening in Pass Christian right now.
Well, we're moving ahead. We lost a lot of homes there. We probably lost 70% of our habitable homes, all of our downtown district completely. But the rebuilding is beginning. It's slow. We think we've issued about 800 building permits, many of which are in the areas where the flooding occurred. but it's a slow process. We're getting all of our city buildings back up and functioning. We lost all of our buildings, the public buildings, except for our fire station. We're living out of mobile home trailers now, providing city functions, but we're providing them. And we're just trying to get our plan together to move out. Our biggest issues right now are trying to create funding methods for operating expenses.
I asked some of the other mayors about the charrette, but was what happened realistic, and will it happen down the line?
The charrette was a good plan. Now we're trying to find ways to implement that into our city. We want to see the smart code adopted in our town. We want to make it work for our town, but we have some unique features like every city does up and down the coast. We want it to protect residential property at the same time encourage economic development. So we want to keep that balance. We'd like to have a better downtown economic district than we did before, but at the same time we want to protect property rights and try to help people with their residential growth. So we're looking to try to implement as much of the charrette plan as possible, but we're also trying to find the dollars to make it work. One of our big plans that came out of the charrette was the expansion of our harbor. And next week, the Secretary of State is coming down to the coast to meet with our local officials to talk about that very project. It will take a Tidelands lease. We hope that that will be possible. And today, they're opening a little satellite office for the Home Depot Corporation. So we're excited about that.
One day at a time.
One day at a time.
Stay with us, all right? Let's talk